I would like to welcome the guest speaker, Professor Dr. Alok Pandey, in this session. I would also like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dr. Tabrez Ahmad, HOD, Professor Dr. Azim P. Pathan, the faculty colleagues and participants. Before we go ahead, a brief introduction of the honorable guest. Professor Dr. Alok Pandey is a seasoned academician and versatile administrator with a total 25 years of work experience in industry and academics. He is currently working as the Dean, School of Management, GD Goenka University, Gurugram, Haryana. He has held several lead roles and leadership positions in his career. Some of these are Director CEO of the Institute of Management Studies, Ghaziabad, Director Advanced Studies at Institute of Cost Accountants of India at New Delhi, India, Independent Director at a major e-governance company, and as a chairperson of the Index Advisory Committee, IADC of India's largest commodity exchange, Professor and area chair in finance and member secretary of academic advisory body of Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi, India. He has also been associate professor at National Institute of Financial Management, Ministry of Finance, Government of India at Faridabad, Haryana, India. Associate professor finance and international business at Institute of Management Technology, Ghaziabad, IMT, Ghaziabad, UP, India. He has authored several
Ajit sir, your screen is frozen, I think.
I think internet connectivity issues.
Yeah, I think
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
No, you're back
Yes, sir,
now.
you're audible.
Financial system, digital entrepreneurship, and e-governance. Welcome to School of upon the learned guest to.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kaushal. You can allow me to share my screen and I'll begin the session.
yes, sir. Sure.
Yes, sir.
So I hope this slide is visible to all.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, it is visible.
And please tell me if it doesn't move. I request the participants to immediately inform me if is it moving now?
So it's not moving. We are able to see the first slide only.
Okay. Let me reshare it. Now is it moving to the second slide?
So it is visible, but the
That's not
slide is
moving.
not moving, sir. So
It is
are you
not
playing on slideshow?
Yeah,
Yeah, so in some laptop, yeah, now it's moving. Yes, sir.
it's moving.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, sir, it's moving.
So anyway, I don't need to get into it, but the point is that what we are trying to do here is understand something called case learning and teaching. And I hope if it is visible, I'll not use the slideshow. At any point, if you are unable to see the slideshow, please inform me. So thank you very much, Professor Ajit Kaushal, for introducing me. The basic purpose of this session is to introduce some ideas on case teaching and learning. And case teaching and learning is popular across the domain of, across several domains, law including one of them. In management, globally, we had Harvard Business School who started this approach long back. And we had Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, which started on this. So can you see the second slide? Is it
No,
working?
sir.
No?
Sir.
Let me
So you
stop
don't
the-
use the slide. No, now it's visible. So you don't
yeah, it's
use the
visible. ठीक है.
slideshow.
I'll not use the slideshow. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what really it does is, basic idea regarding case study methodology is that you focus on something called inductive reasoning. I hope the class is aware of the term inductive versus deductive reasoning. In inductive reasoning, basically, we allow the peculiarities of an event, peculiarity of a situation to be viewed by a person, and that person should be in a position to identify as to how best to draw an inference out of it. It is something where, you start observing an event. So in a case study, you basically tell a story. You tell a story as objectively and meticulously as possible. You try to be as real as possible. You try to ensure that your own judgment does not come into the picture so that the students can see the picture as a whole. For example, I'll give you some real life examples from business situations. I am not a professor of law, but we do talk about law and legality because I have served as a director on the board of a company earlier, and I work with capital markets serving the Index Advisory Committee at Multi Commodity Exchange. And there are several legal cases which crop up. So in my earlier part of my career, though I have taught finance for a long time, my experience, whatever my experience has told me and taught me in terms of case teaching, that is what I'll share. One of the examples which I'll give you, for example, if you're talking about delivering a case in a classroom, you try to be as objective as possible and you do not want to tell your own view. Like, say, starting from medical doctors. So a professor who takes some of his students to a ward and talks to the patient as to what does the patient feel right now. Suppose there is a terminally ill patient, and this patient is in the hospital for last 1 month, and probably he has cancer. There was some tests done. Probably there was some evidence that he or she has cancer, but nobody is sure. And you can't really start telling the patient you have cancer. The patient would die of fear. And you want your students to learn about how to treat a cancer patient. So what medical doctors actually do, they interact with the patient in a very very methodical as well as logical manner. And they do not allow their judgment to come in. They look at the reports, they ask their students, this particular patient has this, his blood pressure is this, his sugar levels are this, He has several of his body parameters are discussed, and then he asks each one of them as to what have they understood. So what really we do in business also, so something has happened. A businessman, I'll give you an example. Suppose somebody wishes to talk about the telecom businesses in India without identifying with the company, without, you can, make the case as general as possible. Say, suppose I wish to talk about Idea Vodafone. Now, this is a company where huge amount of trouble has happened because of the Supreme Court judgment, where the companies had to pay a lot of money as license fee. How to get out of this trouble? And that is what the case is all about. So this case can be taught as a case in a class of law. This can be taught in the class of finance, and this can be taught in a class of strategy in management. Now, what we'll do, we will expose the students without bringing our ideas about the case in a general manner, telling them in a story format as to what happened with the company. How did the license regime changed? How did the law, the legal and regulatory aspects changed? How did the companies invested so much of money into infrastructure? And finally, how the companies were not allowed to raise prices of the services they were providing to people. So basically, through a case, our idea is to ensure that we try to work on a plan where we tell our students about a complex situation in a story format. We allow the students to feel all the ambiguities. One of the major things you have to learn, that if you give a student a clear-cut idea, the student may never learn. So allow the ambiguity of a particular situation to be part of the case. All the uncertainties which are faced by the original participants. Like, for example, today itself in newspapers, they've said that Idea Vodafone, one professor of economics has written that Idea Vodafone should be taken over by the government of India and should be made part of BSNL. Now, suppose this news reaches Idea Vodafone management. Now there's a board meeting going on, deciding on this. How should they feel, and how you can basically document it and present the fact to the students? What should they do? So the fact is that allow the story to be presented as a whole without bringing your judgments, with all its complexities, all its ambiguities, and all its uncertainties, so that the student may identify some of the key components, and they may identify the messiness of the situation or the complicated information. And that is where the case study method becomes much better than several methods. Now, if you look at the Harvard Business School or Harvard Law School, or probably Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, Harvard Business School has an MBA program where students are exposed to close to 500 case studies during their period of 2 years or whatever time they spend there. These 500 case studies are stories woven from around the world, in a format which can associate, where the particular format can be aligned with a particular course. The students don't study the subject first. They study the cases, they debate the cases, and that is what I'm going to discuss with you as to how this storytelling method of teaching can be made a little effective. So the second part, now, why do we use a case in a classroom? Some key ideas which I discussed just now, that there are several peripheral. Now, when you give a case in a classroom, every student will have its own view. So there'll be a lot of peripheral information and there'll be a lot of pertinent information. The real learning would be when the students are compelled to distinguish between the pertinent from the peripheral. Remember, when you take a decision, if you are affected by the peripheral decision and you lose out on the pertinent aspects, you may take a wrong decision. In a court of law, right? I was reading, I think, all those, I think I have a large number of faculty members from the School of Law present here. And one of the most interesting case which is being discussed in the courts of India today is about marital sex and how much does it matter to people. Now, the fact is that there is law which says something. there is the changing mores in the society which say something else. Women who have become independent, and often, as you start looking at this particular case, it becomes more interesting. So sometimes the peripheral information affects the decision so much so that judges even take a wrong decision, right? And that's where the cases go to the higher court and the superior courts actually. And there was another case, if you remember, which was about the idea where one judge of the Bombay High Court, she was not confirmed as a judge on that particular decision. Which case am I talking about? Any colleague who can just tell me that? Recent case where one judge of the Bombay High Court was reverted back to the district court. Anyone who can tell me about that case?
So it's related with molestation and all. If
That is
skin touch,
contact.
It's related with
contact.
the POSCO judgment.
Yes, the POXO judgment, and where, prevention of, child sexual abuse. How does one person look at it? How does one person, so, one judge said something and the Supreme Court got so angry on the judge because the judge probably was looking more at the peripheral idea than the pertinent idea, which the Supreme Court pointed out. So somewhere down the line, when you use a case in a classroom, be careful, and that's where your efficiency in teaching a case would be handy, and that's where you should really think. I basically teach finance, so in our cases, often we can't initially start a case in the class unless we have taught some concepts. But we still believe that, cases can be taught in several formats, in several domains of knowledge, in several subject areas. But in every area, you've got to provide some basic understanding to the student, whether he is a student of law or any other subject, so that he understands what is pertinent and what is peripheral. Some basic idea of the subject also be introduced before introducing the case. That's what people believe. I'm not a I'm not a big fan of only using a case. A case should be taught along with a lecture, is what my approach is. Now, another idea is that the student will be compelled to identify the problems at hand and define its context and parameters. So how do you look at the problem? What is the context of the problem? What are the real parameters of the problem? And this is what happens in a medical case. So the person is a smoker. The person has been smoking for 20 years, and he has come with some amount of blood oozing out from his nose, and you understand that his bodily parameters are slightly shaky. So you identify as to what he could be he could be having a tuberculosis, he could be having another mild concussion inside his nose, and probably he could be having a lung cancer. So the fact is, you need to look at the problems at hand, and that's where in medical sciences it becomes very, very important, because each patient is an individual case. Even in law, each case is different and each individual. So if the lawyer understands the law, if the lawyer understands the dimensions of law, he can use the parameters and the context to come to a decision and identify the problem also. Similarly, the doctor can look at the parameter and context, look at the problem only if he's trained in medical science and understand as to how the patient is to be handled. So what the case study does, it allows the student to distinguish the pertinent from peripheral, identify the problem at hand, and define the context and parameters of the problem. Then they'll be able to identify a set of possible solutions, if there are any, and several students in the classroom may offer several solutions. So if you go to one lawyer, he'll offer you one solution, the other lawyer may offer other solution. Probably depends upon how much they understand the problem, the context and parameters, and how much they are able to distinguish the pertinent from peripheral. Similarly, what the case study would do, it would help the students to formulate strategies and recommend actions, and subsequently take decisions and confront any possible obstacle to the implementation. So if they do it in a case method basis in a classroom, when they go to real life, they'll be in a position to take better decisions. So I am on the slide number 4. Can you view it all?
Yes, sir.
So normally what the cases do is they basically, all cases, all type of cases, if you write, they or use, they basically would be able to illustrate issues and factors, uh, you know, for the problem under examination. They may reflect a theoretical framework, and that's where the key to teaching a case lies. The teacher must be perfect in theoretical framework so that if a student asks you a question on something, you should be able to answer it. Like, for example, a case related to a company which is financially bankrupt. Now, and it is insolvent, and it's been referred to, for example, to insolvency and bankruptcy court. Now, when the student of law would read the case, he would ask the teacher some questions from finance as well. So the teacher must be fairly capable of understanding the ratio analysis, what ratios are important, which they say that the company can become bankrupt or is bankrupt, the balance sheet of the company, the income statements of the company. So the teacher has to be good at it, and he also has to be good at the insolvency law. If you are introducing the case before teaching finance and before teaching financial statements, as well as before teaching, so you got to teach these students about the insolvency law and insolvency and bankruptcy procedure, and you also have to teach the students something about finance. So once they know it, then only you should actually go into the classroom, so the student can learn it faster. If you don't know, neither you nor the student would be able to take any advantage of this particular case study methodology of teaching. So normally cases also underscore whatever prevailing disciplinary assumptions and principles are, and they reveal realistic complexities and tensions in a particular situation. So largely what I believe, that when you use a case, you should understand the theoretical frameworks and prevailing assumptions and principles, and then put the real life complexities and tensions to the student. So all cases would help you make student a little better. And what is the impact of it? Can you see this slide? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
So what it does, as we are moving towards the new education policy, the new education policy is actually talking about, objectives, curriculum objectives, and we are talking about learning which is based on some higher learning objectives. Now the higher learning objectives, they basically are analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Majority of our education system basically has been right from class 1 to 12 on remembering, understanding, remember, understand, apply principle. Whether you look at the engineering education in India, teacher comes, gives a lecture, tests the student on whether he remembers what he is taught, whether he's understood what he's taught, and then he gives him some numericals or questions where he applies something. The case methodology of teaching often targets the higher order learning, where analysis becomes important. Now this is analysis of situations, it is analysis of underlying principles and disciplines, it is analysis of the theoretical frameworks, it is analysis of what I said, peripheral information, it is analysis of identifying what is pertinent, subtract, and kind of separating it from what is peripheral. So all this, and finally creating a decision or a strategy to which is a solution. You create a strategy, and this is your decision framework which you create out of reading a case. So case methodology of teaching largely, and this is called Bloom's taxonomy. So probably as the new education policy comes into force, most of you will have to utilize cases, and you should have, the best approach is that some lectures and some cases. We recently at the School of Management have subscribed to ET Cases, which is part of Library Now, Economic Times Case Manual, and where I am going to request next week all my faculty members to use cases from ET. Of course, a lot of cases are available at different, in EBSCO also and other places also. So you should be in a position to use a case in Indian setting or a foreign setting, depending upon what you're teaching. So in case of law, often the Indian setting cases or management Indian setting cases are very, very good. In case of medical sciences, you can actually use cases from different geographical conditions. So this allows students to analyze, evaluate, and analyze information, evaluate information, compare between different aspects of a particular case, and then create a solution. And this is what the impact of case teaching is. So what it does, it basically creates something called learner-centric approach. It affects the behavior of the student. It is not teacher-focused. It is affective learning. Affective learning basically which affects you. Learning where the student becomes part of the process. Learning where students interact with each other. Learning where students work as a team. They start identifying that a given situation can have 2 or 3 or many different dimensions, and all of them could be right. And there could be not one selection, not one final solution. Similarly, the students are in a position to get self-direction. They become a leader. You allow the student to sit in the chair of the managing director, as I mentioned, the case of Idea Vodafone. The self-direction idea. Can you see the slide? Is it visible?
Yes, this is visible, sir.
So the self-direction idea is that now I write a case on Idea Vodafone. I'll collaborate. I plan to write something. I'll collaborate with either Professor Ajit Kaushal or Professor Azim Pathan, because I see management and law having great synergies. And probably yesterday I met Professor Tariq Intizar regarding a project proposal on regulatory aspects of equity and commodity derivative markets. So, when you write a case, we can write a case there on a particular commodity exchange. So when you are sitting you make the students sit in the chair of Idea Vodafone managing director, that the government is now saying, give this company to the government of India and merge it with Idea Vodafone. What should you do? Right? The question. So the students start thinking like a leader, like a top strategic person, right? So definitely, principles of management suggest that, all leaders have to be managers as well, but all managers are not leaders. But remember that as managers go higher up and become members of the board, they also become leaders. So self-direction is one of the key idea along with self-discipline. And when you use these cases in classroom, I can also add, it helps a lot of self-discipline among students when use it in a case setting. They own the responsibility for their own learning. Their oral presentation and communication skills improve. They learn to cooperate, and they understand the collegiate culture or citizenship idea inside a classroom situation. So the lecture-based learning versus active learning. Lecture-based learning is called passive learning in teaching pedagogy, and the case-based learning is often called active learning. In lecture-based learning, we give a lecture and receive ideas. In case-based teaching, we offer ideas. Students offer ideas to us rather than receiving ideas from us. In lecture-based, they answer our questions, whereas in a case-based, they raise questions. In lecture, they hear our analysis. In case, they make their own analysis. In lecture, they examine texts. Whereas here, they, they have to engage with the text. It's not that something is written and you have to read it and answer questions later on, but you have to identify your own questions, formulate your own questions, engage with it. You accept assumptions when you teach a lecture-based course. Whereas in a case-based method, you challenge assumptions, like in a POXO case we discussed. Like I referred a short while ago, cases related to marital sex or other cases which are coming in front of the Supreme Court. So you challenge assumptions. There's a faculty-student dialogue in lecture, whereas here it's a student-student dialogue and student-faculty dialogue also over a period of time. The locus is the faculty. Here, the locus is the student. So as you look into the case-based teaching, you allow them. So what are the types of cases we can use for teaching? There are two broad types for teaching. One is called a retrospective or narrative cases, The other is called a decision forcing case. In case of a retrospective case, you basically present a comprehensive history of a problem where there are multiple actors, where you have contending interests, different people having different interests, real outcome, where the students identify alternative options and analyze as to why this outcome happened and probably why there were some better options available. So you can use retrospective cases. For example, we teach a case in finance where this is a case about Lufthansa managing director who presented to his management. That was a time when euro was under consideration and there was a lot of pressure on all European currencies. Since the currencies were volatile, he had taken the approval of the board to 50% hedge, his purchase of aircraft from Boeing. Since it was about a foreign currency, he had said, let's have a 50% hedge. Let 50% of the foreign currency amount exposed not be hedged. Now, the result was there were massive losses on the amount which he hedged. And what was not hedged, he got lots of profit. Now, the management questioned him later on, and he was sacked from his position as managing director. This is a case of 1986. Now, when you teach this case to the students later on come, oh, this is the problem. What should I do? So they identify, yes, there was a better solution available. And he could have used options rather than using 50% forward hedge or 50% not unhedged, 50% forward hedge. And he could have used option contracts which were available. So probably the outcome resulted because of certain reason and possibly better solutions were there. So a retrospective or narrative cases of that type. Another is called a decision forcing case where you don't reveal the outcome. And you ask, like Vodafone Idea example I gave you, or insolvency bankruptcy case of a particular company. And there, your idea is you don't reveal the outcome because you also do not know it. Probably it may happen, whatever happened. And you ask the students to identify the range of possible options for action. So probably in such cases, you can write an epilogue and, you can say, okay, later on, when you meet them, okay, this is what happened and this is why it happened once time passes by. So decision forcing cases are two types. You don't tell the students if something has happened and you create a case of your own and then get a solution. You can also take up a live example and use it and later on write an epilogue for it. But in a classroom situation, you can always create a case, a formally written case, which can be purchased from a case clearing house or subscribed by your library. You can use a lead newspaper article. You can use a movie clip as a case. You can use a radio or TV news story as a case. You can use a picture as a case, and you can use a mathematical word problem as a case, or you can use a piece of art also as a case. So you have wide variety of formats. Now, today's discussion is not on case writing, but I'll give you some ideas that if you wish to write, it's not a very difficult task. Often use hindsight. Initially, you should design it backwards. From today, right? You go backwards and identify as to what happened and then write it. Keep it open-ended. There should be no one right answer to a situation because situations change and accordingly solutions change. Have enough information available for the presentation and identify that, there is enough, kind of sources of information available for and present them properly, tables, figures, chart, whatever is there possible for you, create them. You present the problem, but do not put your judgment into it. You ensure that you are allowing multiple realistic positions. In real life, there could be 10 different possible solutions for any given thing. So you don't evaluate a problem, you don't write, give your judgment, and then use it in the classroom on a test basis and edit if required. And you can also get it published later on. Also, what we are not discussing today is case research. You have PhDs which are done on case-based where, you can have exploratory or descriptive kind of, description of something and that can become a case. I had one of my colleagues whom I met a short while ago, who had written a wonderful case study on what happened to the concubines of Rajput rulers in 17th century. And I found it very interesting. So I said, why not? Why should we not, identify some women business leaders, organize a conference, and write a case study on each of the women business leaders? And that could be a research, and that could be you can actually have a description of a situation, and that could be a complete PhD material or a proper case which can be published for research. So whatever you do, you can collect a lot of data there, you can collect a lot of empirical evidence and then present it. So basically, when you look at a teaching case, it is different from a research case. Basically, the teaching case is intended to reveal, demonstrate, or refine the theory which you want to teach, or a law, or a particular law, or a particular, say, disease in medicine, or a particular concept in finance or marketing or human resource management. So teaching cases basically focus on the idea that you try to teach some particular subject or a discipline by using a particular situation, right? And it tells a story. What happened, who was involved, what were the problems they faced, and of course, how the situation was and what was the ultimate result. But in case of research, you'll have to do a substantial analysis, present a lot of empirical data, and present it in a format where you are probably testing some hypothesis at the end of it, or even if you're not testing some hypothesis using that data, you present it in a full manner so that some conclusions can be drawn, which could be called conclusions from this particular research. So the case methodology for teaching, has a long history in business, law, and medical education. We use it in science education now, which is very recent, and it can be used for teaching scientific concepts and content. It can be used to process skills and critical thinking. It can be used, in the classroom for making science relevant to the students. So now let me come to the case teaching method. So if you've understood the basic ideas of a case, if you have questions, you can always write into the chat box, and probably in last 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, we'll have a discussion on this particular thing. So one particular idea is that if you are utilizing this method, what should you do? So step number one, before going to the classroom, you must have very clear objectives as to what you are going to do with a case. You should do sifting from case clearing houses and several case catalogs as to which other cases. Of course, a lot of planning is required in preparing a curriculum. So in the curriculum, which case fits where? Like, for example, when I'm teaching in finance ratio analysis, I can use cases where companies have gone bankrupt because they did not manage their finances properly, and their ratios were bad for a long time. So I'll identify some cases to teach that. So if you are planning to teach commercial law and you are trying to teach some particular code, some particular law or a regulation in the classroom situation where you want the students to understand it, you should be identifying very clearly as to what is the real law which you are focusing at. Say in a criminal law, how should you say? You are trying to teach students a particular section of the Criminal Procedure Code or of the Indian Penal Code, or for example, a particular tax law. Now we have a very contentious tax law, which is an indirect tax law in India, where we are talking about, the new tax regime which we have, and which is called the goods and services tax. Now, goods and services tax is very difficult to understand. Why? Because the government itself is not very clear. Even the practitioners are unable to explain it. And lots of people are writing the material. Even the code is being changed on a regular basis by Central Board of Excise and Customs. Central Board of Indirect Taxes, they call it nowadays. So CBIT. So what we need to understand is that what is it that we are trying to teach? Your objectives must be very, very clear. And then accordingly, you start talking about a case. Often officers, when they apply rules to a particular case, are questioned in a court of law. We've recently seen the case of Aryan Khan, where the officers of the Revenue Department, ED, Enforcement Directorate, and others, they basically used law against some individuals, right? And now this is going to be a very, very difficult case for the government to defend. And later on, when the case went to, the officers were saying that the case pertains to a very serious, group of people who are conniving to sell drugs to other individuals, young individuals, and they had slapped several, kind of aspects of Indian Penal Code on them also. But later on, the court had granted bail to all of them. So when you are trying to teach such contentious laws or regulations, you got to be very clear before going to the classroom as to what my objectives are, because you can very well go out of context in this particular case. So I would say that if I go to the classroom and I say I have to teach goods and services tax, I'll pick up one aspect of goods and services tax and use that particular code from the law and use a particular case which is only talking about that particular case, and the classes concentration is on that particular code. So for this, you have to do a lot of planning and preparation. What does planning mean? You should have some formats, probably have some name slips distributed to the students, prepare the case in advance, hand it over to the students in advance. They should have read it 2 or 3 times. And you should have read the case 3-4 times, and you should have aligned all the aspects and the problems and questions which are going to be asked by the students. Also, not every time, one of the big challenge today nowadays is that students do not have enough power to comprehend typical obscure legal language which is present in the cases, or financial, when they are in first year or second year MBA, they're unable to understand, they're written in English, technical terms are used. So you should ensure that probably you can provide a summary of a real case rather than providing them a full case, right? Give them a summary of a case of, say, if the original case or the order was 200 pages by the court, you can actually identify and put that into what 20, 30 or 10 pages kind of a thing. Or if the situation you have created on your own, a small summary of the entire thing can be given, key ideas, align it with the code you want to teach, or align with the concept in management you want to teach, or whatever, and then move to the classroom. So the case has to be, you got to be thorough with the case. If the case is too long, make it smaller. Ensure that a summary of the case is available all the time with the students. The case should have an abstract before it. If it's a 10-page case, there should be an abstract. All that material which was given in the case, enough information to challenge the analytical capacities and capabilities of the students. And then you go to the classroom, and it should be well in advance. At least, I believe that if teachers are teaching a case, putting something in their curriculum, it should be part of the curriculum before they are actually starting to teach. Second part, now when the case is there, the students are ready, you go to the classroom. It is always beneficial to teach a case in a large classroom. Some people say, no, I want individual presentations. No, the best idea is that divide your classroom into small teams and give very clear goals to them. Don't let them go out of control. Let them decide amongst themselves as to who would do what amongst themselves, and then accordingly, who would present, who would finally write a report and give it to you, how much of discussion, to what level they should do, what is the time in which they have to discuss, and so on. So what you do when you organize a discussion, you ensure that clear roles are there to be given to the students, that yes, the 5 people have been given this particular aspect, and these people are to write, these people have to present, and then the solution. So each individual should have, and when you are presenting a case, so you can say that I have this problem of insolvency and I have 10 groups in the class. Each group is a board. So there is one member from the audit committee, one member from the CSR committee, one member from the nomination remuneration committee, one person who is a whole-time director, one person who is managing director and CEO, and there are 5 people who are divided into roles, and accordingly they assess, identify the information, and then they keep track of what they're discussing. So once you tell them very clearly, it will be a great role play in the class for them. It will also offer them a reprieve from your lecturing. I believe that over a period of time, probably 50% of the classes can be devoted to case studies, 50% to the lecturing. And then have a very clear schedule for writing and presentations. Remember, if you don't give clear schedule for writing and presentations, then your entire effort would be a waste. Now, the next aspect of it. So when you are looking at this, now the students, so you've prepared everything, the first aspect of it. You've gone to the class, you have organized your discussion, everything. Now, you're talking to students in terms of, so you got to first give an opening remarks in the classroom and disclose the context. Like, for example, it's not that they have the case, but you should give a idea to them as to what is it that this case is all about. As I said, the POXO case of that lady judge in Bombay High Court who has been reverted back to the district court, or as I said, the Vodafone Idea case, or there are several, there's another typical case of Volkswagen. Volkswagen, a managing director had to resign on a scandal where there was a software used that whenever you are trying to test the emissions in the car, the software gets activated and the car gives lower emissions. And Volkswagen, actually the cars had higher emission levels and they never wanted people to know about it. So whenever you go for testing, so this was caught in Europe and it was a major scandal, right? Now, similarly, if you look at the cases related to the bankruptcies in United States during the 2007 financial crisis, you will find that each case had a different context. Each company had sets of people who were very different and their problems were very different. Some of them got in trouble because they had very high expectations from the market. Some of them got in trouble because they were using high-end derivative contracts. Some of them got in trouble because the management was making a lot of money and siphoning off funds. At the same time, in India, there was a case, the Ramalinga Raju case. Which case am I talking about? 2009, anybody?
So the Satyam case.
Yes, the Satyam case. And I remember I was a professor at IMT Ghaziabad. I spent around 7, 8, 9, 10 years there, around 10 years. And Professor Ram Mohan Rao was our chief guest at IMT Ghaziabad that day. And, he was standing, he was there for a tea that day. I remember it was sometime in 2010. And, he was having tea with us and he was the chief guest. He was at that time Dean of ISB Hyderabad. And he is a person from IIT Kanpur. And he was on the board of Satyam. And when the Satyam scam happened and the news broke out, I remember he had immediately left in the day. 2 days later, he had resigned from the board of Satyam as well as from ISB Hyderabad sometime in 2010. And when we looked into the Satyam scam very carefully, I think 2007 or 8, I don't remember the exact year, but Professor Ram Mohan Rao's reaction, and he's toned down because he was aware that something's going wrong with the company. Now, later on, as the things came out, we realized that the company itself was on a very, very tough ground. There was a moral high ground, and taken by Ramalinga Raju, and he had created a company called Satyam. Along with it, initially people thought that it is a minor scam where he had used some fictitious employees and siphoned off the funds from the employees through their provident funds, through creating, but the fact was Ramalinga Raju had a plan in his pocket when he started his company in 1986. At that time, he had created 2 companies. One was called Metas. The other one was what's called Satyam. And if you look at it, Satyam and Metas are actually opposite to each other. Satyam, Maytas. Can you get it? Two companies were created, Satyam and Metas. One was into real estate, the other was into information technology. And funds were being siphoned off from one company and put into the real estate company. And this became one of the largest scams of India at that particular point of time. So you have to tell the students the context when you are teaching a case, especially in ethics or law. And then they will not be out of that context while reading the case and focus on that. So again, when you are questioning, you look at relevant angles. You should, ask the students to raise as many questions as possible so that all relevant angles may be discussed. So you can talk about the analysis of the problem and application of theory, and all aspects of theory, all aspects of problems can be understood. Now, remember that while you are teaching a case in a classroom, it's very important that the discussions of the students amongst themselves, and later on when they are discussing in a classroom situation, for example, 30 students discussing and presenting a point, you should be paraphrasing it, whatever they say. Say a group presents a problem and its solution. The group analyzes the problem and its application of theory wherever it is, and then accordingly comes up with a solution. So you should paraphrase and listen carefully and make notes, probably on a large screen in front of you and on a blackboard or something, or probably you should have a note sheet with you where each group's ideas are actually noted down. Now, based on this, you capture positions. Based on this, you allow them. Remember that your own judgment has not to come into play. You only have to listen carefully and paraphrase what the students are saying. So you capture positions and suggest actions. Whatever you say, the students would capture positions and suggest actions, and that can be noted down. So remember that in a particular case, there could not be any single final solution, and each one may have a different solution to it. So we have seen that, if it comes to cases in marketing management, when you have to identify a new project, when you design a new product, teams work on it. Or say an advertising punchline, teams may come up with, you must have seen a recent case during Deepavali, right, where there was an advertisement where they used two communities, right, and later on some people in society raised a lot of noise over it, that the festival is getting affected. So when you're creating an advertisement, you have teams, right? Probably you come to a point where one team has suggested something, later on it turned out to, and that ad was withdrawn. So a decision probably which was taken by a group of people was withdrawn in a company situation. So you got to tell students that yes, there are 5 suggestions, but some of them may not stand the scrutiny of society in general, even if they are not breaking the law. They may not stand the scrutiny of law in future. Say you may be saying this and your argument could be very right. And that is what happens in courts, in a common law system. A judgment becomes a precedence. And once a judgment becomes a precedence, unless another judgment comes over it, you have. So whenever you look at any particular case, it can be, like for example, I'm looking at this case of Elizabeth Holmes. Along with my children, one day I happened to watch the news, and I then probed a little deeper into it. How many of you have heard about the Elizabeth Holmes case in US? Please raise your hands. Elizabeth Holmes. Anyone who can come up and tell me something about that case, what is happening there? And if later on we want to use this, which subject are we going to use it? So I'll tell you, this is going to be one of the major cases in future. This case is about a young woman who was called one of the biggest success stories of United States. A woman entrepreneur who found out that from one drop of blood, you can do all testing. And then she got a lot of funding. Even Warren Buffett funded her. A lot of big people started, hobnobbing with her. Later on, they found that this was a scam. Now, this last week, her partner and she'll serve 60 years in prison. She's a young lady and 30 years of age. And she has an Indian partner who is around 40, 50 plus years of age. And, she has now blamed everything on the partner. The jury has found that she is guilty on 3 out of 4 counts. The partner is yet to be tried. But questions are being raised that, even if that particular lady has been let off the hook on one ground, she shouldn't have been. So please look at this particular case. And if you use it in a class, whether in ethics or law, whatever it is, you should be, ensuring that, you are able to bring a particular perspective, a position, and, in a classroom situation, which, identifies as to this could be the solution for this particular situation. And, students may come, everyone may give the idea, and they may say that, yes, I agree, I do not agree. They may come and clarify. So your role has to be that, yes, this person takes this position, that group takes that position. This could be the course of action now, and they could be widely different. Now, there is something called, when the debate happens, there are differences and there are compromises. So while a debate happens in a classroom situation, you must be very sure about the differences and you must be sure about the compromises. Probably you may talk about solutions which are acceptable to all and they may be different. And probably you may talk about one single solution out of the case. So once you have done it, you should be in a position to actually look at the next steps for, what more data is needed. How do we take this case forward from now? If this step is taken, what would happen? If that step is taken, what would happen? More discussion on it and more action on it. And what is the lesson the class draws from the case? Finally, you may evaluate what the class has learned out of that case. And probably as a teacher, you may identify students and you say that this particular group had a more logical approach, had a more analytical approach. They came up with a solution which was a very creative solution. And this is a solution which will stand in the real life as well. So now, some interesting observations here. Some people say that case teachers are like an orchestra conductor. What does an orchestra conductor do? And they say that an orchestra conductor creates the music. And what he does it by coordinating individual performances, by providing key signals and knowing what the outcome should be, right? What should be the final? So if the orchestra is there, everybody has a different instrument. He has to play a role. And finally, music has to come out of it. So your achievement goals are well defined. The music is understanding of a concept, understanding of a rule, understanding a particular discipline, understanding the underlying concepts of a subject which you are trying to teach. So a case teacher, a class teacher, when he teaches a case, he would identify a case in a manner that a lot of students, when they give their individual observations and analysis and answer key questions, finally you come to a point that everybody has understood the subject he's trying to teach. Say a legal code, as I said, GST, as I said, a particular case related to Narcotics Act, a particular case related to the POXO Act, a particular case related to Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So everybody must have some more idea about these concepts, despite having different questions and different observation and analysis from the situation. So the fact is that the conductor cannot make the music alone. You can't generate learning alone. It will depend upon your inputs as well as the collective inputs of the class. So if you are able to do it, you are an effective case teacher. So you have to learn to be an orchestra conductor. Now, some other people say that when you teach a case, you are attempting to assemble a group of parachutists at a single location after they've all landed at geographically diverse locations. So the fact is that whenever somebody confronts a situation in life, his reaction is completely different, right? My favorite anchor is Naved from Radio Mirchi. How many of you like him? How many of you? Many of you?
Yeah, he is quite good,
Yes,
sir. And
he's quite
Very
witty.
popular. So what does he do?
quite witty.
He calls up people. What does he
Taste
do?
thanks.
So every time he calls up someone, you will find a very different reaction. Some people understand, oh, he is making a prank, and they start laughing. And some people give a very wild kind of a response to the phone call. They end up abusing him. So a same phone call, when you call up somebody, he may have a heart attack. And sometimes, I wish to write to him someday. Then, sometimes you tell someone something very strong, that, oh, we've got a bag in the aircraft and there's a gun in it. Is it your bag? So somebody may have a heart attack, oh, I'm going to be in the jail for doing nothing. Somebody, what happens in a case situation is that each individual comes from a particular background, has a genetic predisposition, has been brought up by his parents or her parents in a particular manner, has gone to particular schools and colleges, and he will react to a situation in a very different manner. I'll give you the case of this gentleman who recently committed suicide, Cafe Coffee Day. You must have heard his case that he had taken lots of loans and he realized that he's not going to repay the loans and he committed suicide. But the same company has been brought back to life by his wife, who is doing fairly well. She's already paid the loans. So the fact is, one situation, two individuals, two different ways of handling the situation. So when we look at case teaching, you are actually getting a large number of students, giving a case to large number of students and getting very diverse responses. But all of them have to come to one particular place where they have to learn the subject you are trying to teach, learn the concept in law you are trying to teach. Ethics, for example. I also watch a lot of videos from Harvard Law School. I do not remember the name of I think Robert Kendall. I don't know. I don't remember. Professor Kaushal, if you remember. He has his initial lectures in the law school on ethics. And I would love that our law school also uses his lectures for students. And he often gives a lot of examples on ethics. And you find that the class itself has very different opinion in each of the cases. Sometimes majority agrees to one, sometimes majority rejects the one, sometimes, none of the people present agrees to a solution. So the fact is that case teaching could be, when you are teaching a case, you could be an orchestra conductor, or you could be a flight instructor where you are trying to get all parachutists who have landed at different locations to come back to a single location. So your idea is that everyone will discuss something different. Like in orchestra, everyone will have a different instrument in his or her hands, and they would like to create music out of it. So here the idea is that we have a larger goal, and this larger goal is nothing but to ensure that you come to understanding of a particular subject. Now I'll share some observations on teaching law. Now, when you look at teaching law, where I'm not an expert on it, but yes, I got some information from here there. And this is basically Professor Columbus Langdell, who basically, again, taught at Harvard Law School. The Harvard Law School has very effective videos also here, and they often teach through case study methodology. And this is a method of teaching which is also utilized in Western countries, including US, Canada, etc., Australia, New Zealand. So largely in this, they provide their legal rules in abstract form, in highly abstract summary form to their students. So what they do is, because there is rule of precedence, they collect a lot of information on judicial opinions given by the judges. And these opinions are distributed to students in summary forms. Say one is that give summary legal rules, and two, give actual judicial opinions. The second is summary legal rules and summary judicial opinions. And accordingly, let the students prepare. So if you have the summary of legal rules available for the students and judicial opinions available for the students will be in a position to understand the subject and the context better. So largely, most of the teachers there, they edit their cases in their own manner in paragraph format. Some present them in full, some in between. And they use a technique, which is, say, a landmark case is provided to them, something which created a major legal rule, and, followed by a brief note. So in most of the cases, the professors will assign several cases from the casebook. They will require the students to be familiar with notes following those cases. And in a classroom situation, the professor will ask questions on the assigned cases in order to determine, whether the students have identified and understood the correct rule from the case, if there is one. So when it comes to teaching law or management, I'll give you some more examples here where we can now discuss the facts, where the idea is on the case teaching is that, when you are talking about the case methodology of teaching, whether it is law or management or any other case where people feel it is appropriate, the basic preparations, which I feel, as I said earlier also, is that you should be thorough with the concepts which you are trying to teach. A case method of teaching is a complete failure when the teacher is not thorough in terms of his own way of teaching, right? About the subject also. So you should be, number one, confident with the concept, and you should be confident with the material you are providing to the case. You should have read the case many times over, and you should have aligned all the dimensions related to the concept. So if you are able to do that, you will be in a position to create a kind of a situation in the classroom where the students would be happy to give you different dimensions themselves, and you will be in a position to guide them in a given direction. So I believe that, number one, while preparing your curriculum itself, you should have a wide array of cases available for you. Use those cases and then put them in context at several places. Do not go by teaching cases. They said, I'll give lectures 50% time and then only read cases in the classroom. It doesn't really work. The students are very clever. Most cases come with teaching notes. And when they come with teaching notes, the students are often know what the teacher wishes to teach them. And this is what I've seen in business schools, that, the teacher has access to teaching notes. The student also has access to teaching note, and the entire exercise comes to a knot, because all the students now want to give the right answer rather than. So my basic idea as a teacher of case in the classroom would be that, number one, try to bring in as new cases as possible. Not always. There could be, don't use older cases. Their notes are available very popularly and everyone understands them, and nobody wants to, and students basically copy and present you an analysis and give you a solution. You evaluate it, and yes, we have completed the idea called case study teaching. So what we need to do is that have latest cases. Once you create a curriculum, of course, the curriculums are being revised nowadays on a regular basis. So for effective case learning teaching, I definitely believe that latest cases, as I said in the beginning in one of my slides, that it's not that you got to use cases only from the case houses, clearing houses. You can use a news item, and that news item could be altered for a classroom situation and be given to a student. So first step, you should be in a position to identify that your cases are to be part of which particular sections in your course curriculum. Learning objectives have to be keenly defined. Before going to the classroom, you should be clear what the learning objectives are. You know, a case in different subjects, whether it is law or kind of management or any business management or sociology or political science, may have very different connotations. So your learning objectives from a case on a particular concept has to be well defined. If the learning objectives are defined, you will be able to get the class, work with you, right? If they work with you, then, so at the end of it, in the entire course, this case would look to be a great exercise. Have separate classes. Don't say that I'll give a lecture and then give a case. We already have smaller classes. So there could be one class and then remaining class could be lecture, discussion of cases. So similarly, what you should do is have lots of summaries available with you of cases, which can be given anytime to the students. And if additional information is required, those additional information have to be provided to the student by you. Then the case study method would be more effective. Another thing, as I have already pointed out, your judgment has to be less when you discuss the case in the classroom. You only have to paraphrase what the students say. You don't have to say that I believe this. I believe is a bad idea. You're not teaching a case. You're not teaching, a lecture method. So in a lecture method, the locus, the focus of attention is you. The student looks at you, you tell something. In this case, you are actually asking them to raise questions. So all these factors, when they come together, they basically help you learn. So I'll give you one or two, revision on this idea. So when you use this case, this has to be your basic, approach. Ensure that you offer ideas and students also offer ideas. Ensure that they raise questions. Ensure that analysis happens. Ensure that the text is engaging. Some important points, before giving a case, ensure that the language is not very complex and the students understand it. So allow them to challenge assumptions. We in India don't allow students and children to challenge assumptions. Allow them to challenge assumptions. Allow them to have a dialogue amongst themselves, and ensure that the student focus is maintained. So we have looked at several aspects. I'll give you a brief summary of what I told you. The summary is that today what I discussed, I told you what is a case and how a case is related to our education system. We are trying to compel the students to learn better and identify creative solutions from a problem. Look at a problem. We are trying to enforce inductive reasoning among the students. We are trying to ensure that they are able to learn a subject in real life setting. We are trying to put them on the higher order of the Bloom's taxonomy. We are trying to ensure that they analyze the information, evaluate the information, and create a solution out of it. I gave you the idea that the impact of case-based teaching, basically the advantages are that the students learn to cooperate with each other, they communicate better with each other, they understand each other's point of view, they have an oral, their oral presentation skills improve, they take responsibility for learning, they become self-directed, and this is effective learning. Their behavior gets affected. Learning basically means change in behavior. I told you about two types of cases, retrospective or narrative cases, or decision forcing cases. Each of the cases, basically, they have two different approaches. In a retrospective cases, you present them a comprehend something which has already happened. And based on that, you ask them to identify alternative options and if a better solution was possible. And this is true about everything. Was a better Constitution of India possible? Is a better penal code possible? Is a better goods and services tax law possible? Is a better strategy possible? Is a better licensing regime for telecom possible? The students may give a point of order, they raise a point of order on it, and they may give you solution. A decision forcing case would be where you do not look at a problem, something which has happened in the past, you can create a solution, or a running problem today and ask the student to assess, give a solution. And probably each student may be right depending upon the argument he provides you. Similarly, I told you variety of formats of cases are possible. formal written cases, newspaper articles, movie clips, whatever, and you can actually use any of it with depending upon what you are trying to teach. You can have I gave you some idea on case writing. I discussed the difference between cases for teaching and cases for research. I gave you basic methodology of teaching a case in a classroom in an effective manner, where the focus is your curriculum, the focus is the concept, the focus is the idea that you are well versed with your subject, you are capable in teaching a subject. Then only, first you should be very thorough with your subject, then only you should have a right curriculum, put cases at places where you want to test their skills in a slightly different manner, learn to manage the dynamics of a classroom, have a clear schedule of presentations, ensure that your judgment does not come into picture, ensure that the students are able to have as many different dimensions, evaluate afterwards and look at what teachings are. I told you that you have to become an orchestra conductor or someone who has got people, someone who has made people land a lot of people from using a parachute at different locations, bringing them to a particular place. I told you that you can use this in law, management, everywhere, but because this is a class of law, we are saying that the American model, I have given you an example of the American model, where you need to have highly abstract summaries of legal rules available with you, and you should also have judicial opinions, small or short. Now they're in PDF format available. You can actually give them to students and ensure that best cases and some of the cases where they have resulted in a path-breaking legal rule being created are definitely discussed in the classroom. So you can have a case book ready for you over a period of your career in teaching. Please keep preparing cases for teaching in the classroom. This is a very effective technique, and it often takes some pressure off the teacher also in completing the curriculum. The idea is, if your learning is student focused, if the student takes responsibility of learning, the pressure would be less on you. So with these words, I thank you, and questions are welcome for the last 10 minutes.
Yes, I would like to call upon the questions. Swarnindu Roy.
Very good afternoon, sir. I am Swarnindu and I am from School of Management only. My question is regarding the case study method for research. How do you go about studying an organization, sir, as a part of your research with the view of case study? Thank you so much, sir.
No, largely, as I said, Mr. Roy, the case study methodology of teaching is slightly different from case study methodology of research. Now, the key difference is that in the case study methodology, the focus is on teaching a concept in the classroom to a student. Whereas when you do research using a case, you are actually collecting as much data as possible through personal interviews, from the books of accounts of a company, say in a strategy case. You basically collect, say in medical sciences, say military strategy. If I create a case there and you say I want to do a research using a case, remember, cases basically represent the inductive logic, where you are actually looking at a situation. Based on the situation, you are trying to draw some conclusion. You know, some people give an example, very popular example, that, you know, all snowstorms come from north. Today also, snowstorm come from north. So in our area, most snowstorms actually come from north, this kind of a thing. So, you know, the idea is that when you're trying to use case for research, your effort is in a different direction with a different focus. Your focus is to identify, you know, remember, research is a meaningful answer or a meaningful solution to a problem. That is what research does. So when you do research in pharmaceuticals, when you do research in like COVID or Omicron today, what is it that doctors are trying to find? They're trying to find a solution to this problem. Now, the problem could be through a medicine, the problem could be through vaccination, the problem could be through behavior, right? So the solution to this problem this is something called a case method approach in medical science. So you will have a large number of people, you will keep testing, and you can do experimentation in a case. So you do a lot of experiment, give medicine to people, see this particular, and it is always longitudinal and takes a very, very long time. Why most PhD programs do not focus on a case method of research? Because it often is longitudinal in nature. So I'll keep a patient for several years with me, keep identifying, understanding what a drug does on him, and then I write a case history. And finally, I'll say, okay, this kind of a patient has been treated by this medicine, so similar patients tomorrow can be treated. And then say, I had a sample, I took a sample, a larger sample of, and then I write a case on that. So, you know, case study method for research is a detailed analysis of situations, of people, and you can put in interviews, you can put in experimentation, you can put in a lot of data into it, and finally come and resolve a solution. So it takes a longer period, but you can still do it. Somebody was asking me, one of our research scholars who is a senior vice president in American Bank of America, and he was talking about cloud migration services. So I said, you can use a case study method in cloud migration services. So you have to keep track, and in 3 years' time, you'll have to identify several companies who have migrated from one cloud service to the other cloud service, and what impact has it had on its people, and finally give an idea as to you should not migrate or should migrate. That is the idea.
Thank you so much, sir. A lovely and insightful presentation.
Thank you, sir. Prabhajot ji, you can ask your question.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the presentation, sir. It was very insightful. I think I didn't interrupt your presentation, sir. You did make a reference to Christopher Langdell's, initiative vis-a-vis the, introducing the case study method. But I think while you were making your presentation, you were trying to refer to the name of a professor who teaches ethics at Harvard. Were you meaning to refer to Professor Michael Sandel, sir? Because he is a professor of law.
Yes. It was a Michael Sandel.
Because I've been through his lectures, on justice, and he's adopted the case study method basically to make students think of what is the right thing to do. And all those videos and the lectures are giving a perspective of giving a case situation and asking the students at what would be the right thing to do. That the trolley car case, going back into and making the students think on the ethical questions of what is the right thing to do in law.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for revising my memory. I basically, made my children also look at it. Some of the ideas of ethics basically come very strongly into law. Normally, it is ethics which gets converted to law. So what I found his way of teaching very interesting, because they teach very large classes. And there, he gives very small snippets, small cases. So, I remember one case where he was, Michael Sandel said that, you are standing on top of a building, and you see a railroad which goes there, and 5 people working on the railroad, right? And you have a lever.
Turn the car, right?
If you turn it to the right, there's one person. So which way would you do it? So people say that
why
would you turn it on the right way, there's one person, so that you can save 5.
Right.
Then he asks the question, so while standing in front of you, there is a very fat man in front of you. If you push the fat man onto the rails, the the vehicle would stop and it will stop killing. So say, none of them will agree to actually, throw the fat man onto the railroad. So the fact is that somewhere I believe that the case methodology of teaching is very similar to the idea of ethics. Each one of us has our own backgrounds. Each one of us have certain belief, right? For example, this whole idea of religious sacrilege. How religious sacrilege is dealt in Hinduism is not the way it is dealt in Islam or Sikhism, or in Christianity, right? So every religion has its own way, and they are very modern, right? For example, the modern religions like Sikh religion, which I'm very fond of, is a very modern religion where it is simply saying that follow your guru, right? So the guru, of course, is a text, fine, but Guru Gobind Singh said, no more gurus. We've got enough wisdom. If you have enough, you can live a good life. And that's why he called the religion Sikhism, or Sikh. Sikh means student, and a student for life. Right. So somewhere down the line, every one of us looks at the situation from our religious perspective, from the way we have been brought up, from the way, the kind of schools we have gone to. So I somehow believe that case methodology of teaching also the teacher has to be sensitive to the needs of the classroom. And that's where the role of institutionalizing these case studies comes in. Right. Thank you, sir.
Right, sir. So I just needed to share with you a couple of, the experiences, I had while learning. Of course, I studied law at Delhi University way back in 92, and we had the case law method at that time introduced. So we, of course, were, taught law by reading cases, and we were expected to read the case and come. Some came prepared, some didn't come prepared for the lectures. But yes, that is how we started. But then, I've been a lawyer primarily in practice for a larger part of my career, and have come back to learning, and I'm a student at the GT Goenka Law School of Law. And I think that
you're doing
so
your master's in law, sir?
Yes, sir, I'm doing my master's. Yes, sir, I am the oldest student the university would have. I think as a matter of record, I'm 53 years old and I'm doing my LLM. And, what interests me, sir, as a lawyer, I've worked a lot in the infrastructure space, and I got to work a lot in the regulatory space, which, requires a lawyer to go much beyond his area of discipline, which is just law, but also understand sectors, sectoral challenges, pricing, tariff. And I remember attending a pricing training program conducted by the World Bank way back in 2001. And, it was a 2 weeks program. And because we were students there, the entire bunch of participants were divided into 5-10 groups, and they came up with a price control study in the water sector. And every participant was part of a team which was either representing the state or the utility supplying water or representing a consumer body. And they came up with the challenges the sector was facing. And on the last day of the program, there was this entire presentation of, who deserves what and why was the utility demanding a hike in the price of water, what were the justifications, what were the challenges the state was facing, what were the other stakeholders. So there were some water tanker associations. And I remember being part of a body which was the alternate supplier in the same area, which was a water tanker association, which was trying to bridge the gap. But what I recall is, I think what you said, that the case law method and the case study method, putting a live proposition before students and making them think through the possible solutions and the challenges in reaching to or you can say an appropriate conclusion, which meets and does justice to every stakeholder. I think that I think is a great tool to make the students think and learn. And what you rightly said, that, instead of one person being the decision maker, you become the conductor who makes the orchestra perform, and, everybody is playing, the drummer is playing, the guitarist is playing, and the singer is singing, That I think is a real great effort.
Probably I believe that, when you are running an organization, when you are with different people, when you are holding a position of, responsibility, largely when you are taking key decisions, that is what is important, that, you should ultimately focus on what the objective is,
right,
rather than, too much dependence of your own judgment and sense of capability. And often people, like what happened in the farm laws, right? The farm laws were passed in a hurry. Then the farmers of in large, numbers, they sat outside the Delhi borders. For 1 year they kept, and finally the government withdrew the law, right? So if the government attends the orchestra very well, if the conductor were good, we could have heard the music. But here it was all chaos. So somewhere down the line,
irony,
I believe it's an irony, right?
Sir, the irony, sir, the issue of that subject which you touched upon, the irony is I lately, it's not a published paper, I did some research on, I was just more interested because everybody was saying that we need this right, we need the MSP to be protected, and we need that the provisions we made in the farm laws. If you go back historically in the 1966, when this entire concept of MSP was introduced, the trigger for introducing the MSP was more an incentive so that farmers in Punjab, Haryana start planting rice and wheat, and they gave them a minimum support price, and that minimum support price nowhere existed in any law. It was an incentive. It was not. I thought that maybe the MSP was brought in.
I will.
More.
It's a longer discussion, sir. But actually, let me tell you, where they've gone wrong on this is that, point is that when you look at the way you bring about a change, MSP needs to be changed, right? But when you want to bring about a change, it has to be done in a manner. That's where most of the good laws can actually become bad if the general population opposed to them. You look at
Right.
the laws related
Yes,
to dowry.
everything ultimately comes on the implementation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Because if you
We are
look at-
spending $10 billion. $10 billion is being spent on import of edible oils, whereas we have so much land available where people can plant maize.
I'll
and
tell you,
we
another
don't need to
case.
import
Let
all
us
these oils.
come back to the topic. The Shah Bano
Right.
case of 1986.
Right.
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 If you look at it now, again, people are talking about common civil law, and all those things in India. So,
Right.
say the reservation for the backward classes in 1990, right? Some of the key decisions which have been taken and have been legislated, they needed to be understood in particular perspective, and a wider audience needed to be, taken into consideration. So somewhere down the line, I think we'll get into a bigger discussion on that, sir. But any other questions here?
Sir, thank you so
Yes.
much, sir.
Thank you,
so much.
sir.
Thank you.
Let's meet in
Thank
the
you,
campus
Prabhu
someday when you're there.
for your input. And whether there is another question, we can take maximum one question because it's already 3:30. Yes. So I think we have come to the end of the session, and I would say thank you so much to Professor Dr. Alok Pandey for his valuable session, which was very much informative. And I think he has discussed all the aspects, relevant aspects of the case study method. You very pertinently said, sir, in the very beginning, that case is a story. This is the facts. And this is how actually we try to gather the concentration of those students. The facts are nothing but the story. You also discussed about the case learning and the Bloom's taxonomy, which is very important input into today's era, considering we all are following the outcome-based education. You discussed very beautifully on passive learning and active learning, and which gives rise to the various debates and discussion in the class when the case method is cases are discussed by the teacher in the classroom. So thank you so much, sir, for the insightful discussion, and thank you for giving the time to us. And we will definitely look forward to have some more sessions like this in future as well. Now I would like to call upon our head of department, Dr. Azim Khan Bahadur Khan Pathan, if he would like to say something.
Thank you, Professor Alok Pandey, sir, for your wonderful session today. I could hear in between, I was in other meeting as well at the same time that related to NAC, but I could, gather based on this, whatever I could, listen through this entire session. It was more interactive and it was more outcome based on this case based, approach in teaching. So indeed, we are so much thankful to you for joining us today for this FDP. And obviously, and I'm sure, participants, they must have already been benefited by your session. So I'm also thankful on behalf of entire organizing committee, our convener, Dr. Tariq, Dr. Aditi, all members, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor and our Dean, sir, Professor Tabrez Ahmed. I extend heartfelt gratitude to you on this occasion of this FDP. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dear participants, the feedback form for this session is already given in the chat box. And the details of tomorrow's sessions are also mentioned in the chat box. Tomorrow, our first session is by Professor Shijit. The timing of the session is 9:30 a.m. And the session topic is on preparing legal research paper for high impact journal. And later on at 11:30, we have our session 2. It's a workshop on the topic preparing legal research paper for high impact factor journals. It's by Professor Afzalwani, sir. And later on from 2:30 to 3:30, we have our valedictory session, as tomorrow was the last day. And the valedictory session is going to held through the Zoom link.
Thank you, Dr. Ati, for the details. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Participants, please fill the feedback form. The form is open for the next 10 minutes. Thank you. Mona Patnaik, you have a certain doubt, I think. Yeah, in the last session, which is going to be held tomorrow, that is from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. After that, there will be a quiz session with the link for the same will be given after the session. So we will declare about that tomorrow. And on the basis of that quiz, we are going to declare three winners, which we will declare in our valedictory session. I hope I'm clear. I'm able to clear your doubt. Thank you. Zakira, I think I have spelled your name rightly. Yeah, we will share the materials one we received from sir. And as soon as we received it, we will share with the participants. In the meantime, you can see the sessions in our YouTube channel, the School of Law GT Goenka University's YouTube channel. At the end of the day, we upload all the sessions over there.